So for anybody that wants to understand why we are in the state we are in as a police state, take a look at this video. You can see right here on the left, you have one shot fired. This cop right here has not fired a single shot yet. You're gonna see 2 shots fired on the left. See that big old dust cloud go up? Now you have 3 shots fired on the left. You have 2 on the guy right next to him. And then there's the 4th shot. Now this officer fires his first shot. So when people want to understand why we were in the state we were in, this is an officer that I was being forced to keep. Why politics have gotten so bad in policing, and they have to keep a warm body on the road or they got to go out and police themselves. So the problem is politics, okay? This is a person that a commander was forcing me to keep as an officer. I went against his ruling, and I made sure this officer did not have a gun. And made sure that our community was protected, because who wants to have an officer respond to a location and have an emergency arise, and this guy come out, this is the officer that's there, and all of a sudden he's got to take some shots, and he pulls his gun out of his holster, and yeah, he takes an hour to pull the trigger. Okay. Not only that, the placement on these targets are not good. I believe I counted 13. These are headshots, so 13 headshots, barely on target, and there was 50 rounds fired throughout the day on this actual target, and so you do the math. The rest of them are missed shots. So here's another video of this same officer, and you're going to see the same exact actions. He doesn't even pull the trigger until, I mean, you can hear all of the shots going on around you from all the other officers, and then somewhere in this video, he finally pulls the trigger. This is 7 years ago, guys. This is 7 years before all of the mass exodus of police officers. So you can imagine how much worse it is today. So here's the last video I want to show you. This officer from a range of 25 yards skipped several rounds off the grass. So can you imagine this officer coming to help you, and all of a sudden gunfire breaks out, and he's the officer that's there, and he has to move and shoot on targets. Now, this target had very few rounds on it, okay? You can see just how his movements are, how he's walking, how his base is. He's having to be guided, right? I mean, this officer lacks coordination. But what I want you to look at very closely is when the transition to his handgun comes in, and when he's forced to fire with one hand, which is a reality. I mean, in a gunfight, you could lose the operation of one hand, right? Now, remember that officer, he was on the last targets, he was firing, and it took him an hour just to find his sights. Now, think about this. If this officer in public now is firing shots on the move backwards, and he can barely hit the target standing still waiting to fire a shot, how many rounds do you think is going to hit a bystander? Okay, this officer had no business being a cop in the first place, but because he was a friend of the commander's, a friend of the commander's father, he was allowed to stay there. But you can see the gun move in his hand. I mean, you saw that, right? Look at that. Look, there's no control over that gun. The only place that rounds are going to go is into citizens. This is what California policing has become. We keep warm bodies. We're forced to because of politics. This is the result of Gavin Newsom. This is the result of police chiefs and sheriffs not standing up, not fighting for their cops, and we had a mass exodus in law enforcement. We have third-rate police officers policing today. Just to give everybody an idea what it's supposed to look like when you pull and fire your gun with one hand, this is 14-year-old Riley Lizardo. This is at the same time frame that I just showed you all those videos. You can see the control of his gun. So this is a 14-year-old who's got more control over his gun than a police officer that I was being forced to keep. Now you see him also, his movements, he's aggressively attacking the targets. His shots, his control of his gun allows for very quick follow-up shots. So the reset of his gun, it just allows for very quick follow-up shots. You're going to see coming up as well, him take a 50-yard shot. The other officer was having trouble hitting headshots from 10 feet. This is a target that is no bigger than your chest cavity. We have a real problem in our country, folks. It's called politics, and it's not just isolated to state government. It is absolutely in our law enforcement heads of departments. They have had every opportunity to fight for us as the citizens, us as the community, the police officers, and they have done nothing but create a problem in our country, which has forced police officers out of policing, sheriff's deputies out of policing. Who do you think is filling those roles? Okay, the good cops are leaving or have left. You guys, the videos that I've shown you here are 7 years old. Do you think it has not gotten worse with politics?